So you've made it through your teacher training, hours of observation, practice teaching, anatomy study, maybe a few meltdowns here and there, but now you're finally certified. So the natural next question is, how do you then land your first job as a Pilates instructor? Today, I'm breaking it all down from understanding the different studio options to what managers look for, to knowing how to feel confident in your first audition. If you're nervous or unsure of where to start, don't worry, I got you. I'm gonna explain everything in this video. Hello, lovely people. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Amira. I'm a certified Pilates instructor, and this is the final part of my Pilates teacher training series. In this video, we're covering the different studios you can teach in, how to prepare for interviews and auditions, and what studios are actually looking for in a new instructor. I'll also share how I personally landed my first teaching role, well, roles plural, and I'll also recommend some things for you to help streamline the process so you can focus on getting to the money. So let's just dive right into it. Number one is knowing your studio options. So before you even start applying, it's helpful to get an idea of what kinds of teaching environments there are. So we can generally kind of split this up into three categories, give or take a few. The first being franchise studios. So we're talking like your big corporate owned franchise studios, you know the ones, they're on every corner in every city almost. These tend to have the benefit of kind of more structured onboarding, preset class formats, and also mostly reliable hours, and also the opportunity to pick up shifts, say if a fellow instructor needs someone to cover their block. So they're great if you're newer, you want simplicity, you want structure, but it also might mean a little less opportunity for creativity. In my experience, really managing the expectations of the clients that are part of that studio, say if they're used to one certain style of Pilates or perhaps more so Pilates inspired fitness rather than more so the traditional teachings of Pilates. But again, it totally depends on the studio. I knew lots of my instructor colleagues at these studios were classically taught. Next category is more of your boutique or privately owned studios. So these are usually smaller, more specialized, and typically may either follow a classical or more contemporary approach. But people who usually come to these studios are kind of more conditioned to expect more classical, traditional Pilates, right? That preserving the original work of Joseph Pilates, or maybe with slight adaptations. So these often offer more flexibility in terms of how you might structure your classes. You're not following a set class model that some of these more like Pilates inspired studios may follow, or have to get acclimated to other equipment, say like a TRX, for example, which isn't necessarily Pilates, but you can do a lot of Pilates movements on the TRX. And also these studios tend to have more of a loyal clientele, right? They're not just in and out. They are really serious about progressing through the Pilates method, but also they might expect you to come in with an already developed teaching voice. So having some solid teaching experience under your belt. And then the final category is more like freelancing, independent, private teaching opportunities. So this could often involve like renting a studio space, offering virtual privates, right? If you have equipment at home. This has the benefit of high flexibility and added earning potential because you're kind of cutting out that middleman. If you're charging for a class, you're pretty much taking all of that in. But you also, of course, might wear different hats, right? You're a marketer, you're a content creator, you're the admin. So trade-offs. My pro tip is to think about what kind of support you want. I knew I wasn't quite ready to go solo. Of course, after I got certified, right? I didn't have any clients. So I applied to a few franchises and boutique studios, and then just constructed my week based on teaching at a few studios, maybe 2 to 3 studios per week. And that way I could really count on having stable hours and also ability to pick up extra shifts if I needed it. Next thing we're going to touch on is actually preparing for the interview and audition. Most studios will want either a short little demo or flow, or perhaps an entire class that you're teaching to perhaps the lead instructor and maybe some front desk folks. Also expect to have a quick chat or interview just talking about your resume in general, right? Where you got certified, the teaching experience you have under your belt, and obviously what your teaching availability is, what your preferred hours would be. What helped me feel confident was that I had a few class plans already under my belt, and I actually developed this during my teacher training. And then I would just kind of tweak the flows based on what I knew about the studio. And then in my resume, I actually included a page with any of my specializations, a few testimonials from practice clients that I had, and my general class themes or special populations that I was comfortable working with. Next thing to touch on is what studios are actually looking for. Now, this might vary from studio to studio, of course, but rest assured, it's not always about being perfect. It's more about, are you professional? Are you teachable? And do you see like you have the ability upon first impression to actually connect with your clients? So from my experience, things that'll help you stand out is confidence with knowing your modifications. Can you work with different bodies and adjust your cues accordingly in real time? I like to have an idea of what I'm planning before I go into class the next day. So I would spend some time just kind of for the week planning that out. But of course, a client might walk in, you know, she's pregnant or she just had knee surgery, she had a shoulder surgery she needs to rehab. And what I originally had planned based on what I thought the audience would comprise of wouldn't necessarily work for those few clients. It might mean that you're more so standing closer towards their machine to keep an eye on them. Also for larger studios, figuring out if you're comfortable teaching 10 to 12 people on a reformer. Now this is a little controversial. I myself loved the kind of smaller group class settings, so like 5 to 7 reformers max. You really just kind of develop more of a personal relationship with the clients. You get to know their bodies better, especially if they come regularly. But I also did feel like teaching in larger studios really required me to adapt very quickly, especially when I first started out. That was one of the first studios I taught in. So it really has you thinking on the fly and developing the ability to kind of hone in on those effective cues, which different types of cues make sense for different audiences very, very quickly. And of course, there's clarity and presence. So you need to be calm, clear, and commanding. Have a strong speaking voice and look like you know what you're doing, because you do, of course. You just got certified. And I will say teaching helped me cultivate my public speaking a lot. I am naturally an introvert. Unless you're like my friends and family that I'm really close with, I will yap your ear off, spill my guts. But usually when I'm, you know, around other people or like in public, I'm a little bit more reserved. But this process really got me to operate outside of my comfort zone, really get to know people, take an interest in people, have that human connection, and of course, learn how to communicate effectively in a manner that people can digest. Of course, they want to know if you're a personality fit. Can the clients in that space vibe with you? Can you vibe with different members of your team? Will you be a positive contribution to the team? And then of course, consistency. Studios are looking for, you know, can you show up on time? Are you reliable? Are you willing to keep improving if you receive feedback? So of course, you probably wouldn't be undergoing this training if you weren't like this, but just showing that you're dedicated, right, open to feedback, and actually care about the client's experience, that'll go a long way. So my process to landing my first teaching gig was fairly simple, actually. I applied to about 3 studios right after my certification, 2 franchises, I believe, and then 1 boutique studio. I tailored my class flow, particularly for the franchise studios. Again, when I was in training, I kind of had these more so like pre-planned class flows for different scenarios. And so for one of the studios, they wanted me to do a demo. It was easy for me to just kind of pull from that and then modify based on what I knew that their class formats were, which could easily be found online. And then I followed up with the lead instructor. We had a nice chat, and that was pretty much it. I followed up with an email saying, you know, thank you for the opportunity, and then was offered a position. One studio actually offered me the block right away. This was a studio that I demoed for, and it was also the studio that I actually kind of cultivated that relationship beforehand. I reached out to the owner. I got to know the manager at the time. I got to know the front desk folks. So I was already kind of in the studio observing and kind of preparing, because I already had stated my intention to want to teach there after my certification. So I highly recommend kind of building your relationships beforehand, letting them know, hey, you plan to, you know, test out on this day and receive your certification. So they kind of already know you and pretty much will offer you the job, you know, as long as everything else is there. And if you want a flexible digital system that helps with this, then I highly recommend you check out my new Train and Thrive Pilates Teacher Training Companion Hub, which is a suite of 11 templates housed in a central dashboard that kind of helps you through the process of your training, your certification, but also in landing your first teaching role. So we have a resume and offerings page inside Train and Thrive that can help you get clear with your services that you're offering, your pricing, your teaching philosophy. We have a class planning mini dashboard that helps you to plan your classes with ease and prep your flows for your different studios. And you even have a space where you can log client feedback and testimonials that you can use maybe on promotional promotional materials, maybe pitching yourself to a new studio, so you can start building that social proof from day one. So again, it's not about being perfect. It's about, showing up, knowing your stuff, but also remaining teachable, remaining flexible, open, and ready to learn. And then the rest will come in time with experience. So I hope this gave you some clarity on what the job hunt process actually looks like after teacher training. Let me know in the comments down below, are you starting your job search or feeling unsure about the next steps? Let's talk about it down below, and then hopefully we can share some resources. And if you maybe watched this video first and you're still navigating through your Pilates teacher training journey, I've got more tools and tips in the full PTT playlist, so be sure to binge it. This was the last video of the official series, but if you have more questions, something that I didn't cover throughout these videos, let me know, and then I can make a video and then just kind of drop it in the overarching Pilates journey FAQ playlist that I have on my channel. So I hope you enjoyed this little series. As always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you very, very soon, and don't forget to stay mindful. Bye.